Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As one of our panelists, Bill Weideveld from M7 Group, is missing this afternoon, and I think he would have had quite a lot to say about this particular topic, I'll in a way try and play a false number 9 football role in his case, and also mentioned M7 Group in our discussion, which is going to be very far-ranging. So anyway, you were briefly introduced to the panelists. I was wondering perhaps if each one of them could tell us a little bit more about their particular companies that they represent. Starting off perhaps with you, Max.
So,
Bulsatcom.
Thanks very much, Chris. Hope everybody can hear me. So I'm the recently appointed CEO of Bulsatcom. I was basically brought in by the lenders and the new investors. I started off being the chief restructuring officer, and so now I'm the co-CEO. So I kind of approach this industry and the business really, hopefully, with a fresh pair of eyes, looking at the problems, looking at the changes, and how to address them. There are lots of changes going on in this industry, and yeah, I'm very happy to discuss them as part of this panel today.
And Barış.
Hi, my name is Barış. So this is the second time I am here. I'm working for the leading mobile and fixed line operator in Turkey, Turkcell, and I lead the IPTV, OTT TV, and the music business in Turkcell.
György.
It's so funny to hear my name, you know, in several countries no one can pronounce it, even my mother, so I believe in George, Giorgio, mostly George. So I've been running for more than 6 years, the biggest pay TV operator and the co-leader of Broadband in Ukraine. It's very difficult to call it cable TV operator because maybe it was like 10 years ago, but just to demonstrate you what we're doing, 60% of our new sale is fixed and mobile broadband bundled with mobile applications and content everywhere. So that's what we are doing.
Okay, right. Well, you're from 3 very diverse markets. All 3 are changing quite rapidly. How are you responding to the competition in those markets? Anybody like to start off?
I'm happy to start because, don't get me wrong, I saw these slides. I'm always seeing these technical slides, and it's a kind of, you know, the minimum requirement to find and pick the right solution and to operate it because customer experience is everything, okay? So you can differentiate with the content, and it has to be relevant, but customer experience with everything. What was really interesting when you are entering these markets ahead of your competitors or you're waiting when technology is matured enough. Why I'm saying this because when I was taking over this company, we were entering the OTT market well before everyone else. And the market was ready, I don't know. But the learning, what it gives, it completely changed our business model, and later on I'm going to talk about that. And then you had the experience how to tackle certain competitors, be it just the usual Eastern European crooks who are not paying for the content and just having the best garage solutions. In Ukraine there is not a lot, only about 3,000 of them. Or having other providers, be it the mobile providers or the Netflix guys coming to the market. So what I'm going to talk about, not to respond, but how to be prepared and how to drive certain situations, especially if you can control the content acquisition space.
Sure. Well, Barış, you know, Turkey is a market which perhaps not many people are very familiar with. Perhaps you could outline the situation there and the competition which you face, because you're the leading mobile operator, I believe, Turkcell in the country. How do you sort of address the competition? What do you do?
I mean, indeed, in the old days, the competition shaped by all the local players. And, among us, we were trying to compete with each other. But now, it is much, much different. So now, we have to compete with the global players.
Right.
And, and they are investing huge amount of money for the contents, and we have to find a way to compete with them. In the old days, when we say pay TV means that you call to a call center and you ask for them to buy a pay TV, and they will bring you a set-top box, and you are becoming a subscriber of a pay TV. Okay, but in the new era of the broadcasting and the pay TV is completely different. It's very fast. There is no call center. The customer experience is completely different. The content way of doing business is different. The monetization is different. So Turkey is now just at the entrance of this new era, and we are trying to find a way how to compete, especially with the global players.
And what about Bulgaria, Max?
Well, I think Bulgaria has some of the similar features, but it also is very different, as I'll explain. Yes, in Bulgaria we have to deal with the fact that there are the global players. There's the Netflix and there is the Amazon Prime. But the people sitting in this audience today are the exception because, by definition, if you're sitting here, I hope you speak English. But Bulgaria is not an enormously large country, and there isn't that much content for someone like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime to actually put in Bulgarian. So that if you look at Netflix today in Bulgaria and you look at even the subtitles, you'll find Turkish because there's just not the demand to be able to do that. So I think in time that will come, but for now, I think the competition is very much within the country, and the way I look at that is there is a consolidation. I think the big players will more and more start to dominate. But we have a fundamental problem in Bulgaria, which is the grey market and the black market. This is a massive problem in Bulgaria. We start with the black market. By the black market, I mean that in little regions and little villages everywhere in this country, there are basically people who steal content, right? They basically take that content, they broadcast it, and the local people pay very little to watch their TV. For them, it's kind of great, we're not paying very much money, but there is change coming. First of all, we need to understand that they're stealing. You need to understand that the guys that are broadcasting this are basically criminal. And there needs to be changes in the legislation. Some of this is coming. I think the change that we've seen in the recent ownership of Nova TV, I think there's going to be a really big push in this direction. And the big content distributors, such as Bulsatcom, Vivacom, A1, also need to be part of that in driving down the people who are stealing content, because it is damaging to the industry. Yes, there are organizations like TerraPro, but that needs to be reinforced. But I think the message for those that steal content is, we know who you are and we're coming after you.
Right, there you go, loud and clear. I was actually going to move on to piracy later on in our conversation, but as we're touching on the subject now, perhaps György and Barış could tell us a little bit more about the situation respectively in their countries. Saying, Barış, what's the situation like in Turkey?
For piracy?
For piracy, and indeed, is it an issue for Turkcell?
I can say Turkey
is the king of piracy.
Yes, maybe one of the top piracy market, I can say. It is so easy to watch anything that you want. But the thing is that the first one is to fight with piracy. It's obligatory. You have to do that. You have to protect your content because you pay for it and the others, they don't pay. And the second one, you have to keep some different elements in order to convince the watchers and subscribers. The first one is the customer experience. Okay. The second one is the quality of your broadcasting. It is important. And the third one is the ability to give a different kind of varieties and flavors to your subscribers. It is not easy. It is a kind of education. But at the end of the day, the subscribers and the watchers, they have to see that when they experience once a higher quality, they start to pay and become the real subscriber. It is not easy. It takes time, but you have to teach them and they have to learn that.
What percentage of the market, would you say, is pirated in Turkey? How big is it in terms of figures? Do you have any idea?
It's huge pirated market, Turkey. by far, I'm sure. But they start to learn. I mean, the subscriber and the watchers, they start to learn and they start to pay for the higher quality services.
Okay. Well, in Ukraine, I know I read quite a bit about these piracy
There's
raids.
not such a thing like piracy.
No, it's something different entirely.
Because, you know, now I think the North Koreans and the Iranians are a little bit better in IT hacking than in Ukraine, so there's not a piracy at all. But, you know, I think they're the source of free flow of piracy, and that's my experience in Ukraine. First, there was no access, any kind of legal access to certain content. So I'm coming around, I'm going to find that. I'm also that kind of guy, not about piracy, I'm finding a solution. The second is, you know, the law, it's in place everywhere, but law enforcement, not necessary. And the third thing is about pricing points. But, you know, what just I heard, that if you have the right pricing point, people are ready to pay for that. So, you know, when there was a certain ARPU level of customers and we introduced a package which basically doubled the ARPU for those customers, but they have these special 4 or 5 movie channels, what we were producing, they were ready to pay for that. And everyone explained why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's also about pricing point. And here I want to address the whole Netflix question as well. I heard that.
Yeah.
The local content is the king. I don't know who is sitting here. I know one who is sitting here who doesn't have local content, but we are very happy to cooperate with him. But everything else, especially the linear channels, which is not local, is cost. Everything else is investment because we learned how to monetize it because we know exactly who and what they want. And to find that and the right size of those communities and the right pricing point can push back but cannot eliminate piracy. And I want to highlight one area where there was big progress. We are the rights holder of Champions League and Europa League with a media partner. They are producing their own football channel. We are using all the IP solutions. And in B2B, we are the biggest player in HoReCa, the hotel, restaurants, cafeterias. So it was super important for both of us in sport to control the piracy. So we were doing that. And quadrupled our money. But you know, it's like an everyday control. We eliminated piracy, no. But there is a message that someone is going to come. I think the ultimate reason of piracy that the content right owners, and I don't want to list the big companies, when are calculating for them, for the size of a market like Ukraine, how much money you are leaving on the table, tens of millions of euros or dollars, they say, I'm not investing into that. So you expect from the police is never going to work, or any kind of cyber police is not going to work. You have to have your baseball bat and going to these places and to send some messages. So it's not going to disappear, but there are certain tools for certain genres and segments you can push it back.
There is also a shift in Ukraine now taking place because satellite channels are going to be encrypted, or in the process of being encrypted. Is that going to make any difference in terms of people having to pay?
You know, in Ukraine, the satellite signal of the local XMOS carried channels might be encrypted.
Okay.
I heard it for several years, so I'm going to believe when it's
So
like that.
it might not even happen.
And it can help, but you know, there are technologies how to come around, you know? It's about the business model and to have the right size of the market and the right pricing point in everything. That's my experience.
Okay. Moving back to OTT, Netflix, etc. What do you think? Do you think the solution of actually incorporating them in your own services is a good one?
No, I think we as kind of domestic, particularly obviously within Bulgaria, we have to compete with them. We have to compete with them in terms of the technology, because obviously people who are just watching television, they have some playback, they can look at certain things at different times, but it's not really kind of programs on demand, which is essentially the Netflix model. And I think it's inescapable that is going to take a larger and larger part of the market. But we're going to have to respond to that by developing our own equivalents. And I think we heard in the previous speaker who was saying, you have to compete with the quality. And I think that quality, obviously it's expensive to get there, but over time the technology becomes cheaper, it becomes more freely available, and what you're going to see is that all the big TV distributors will have their own equivalent of Netflix locally, broadcasting, for example, in Bulgaria, the Bulgarian channels as well as the English. Yeah. And I think that's an inevitable direction in which we're headed.
Well, there is, as I mentioned earlier, M7 Group, who aren't present here, they have this service in the Czech Republic and Slovakia called Skylink Live TV, which is their own OTT service. And the fact that they've recently acquired UPC DTH means that they're also going to have a presence in Hungary and Romania. And it'll be interesting to see if they actually expand their OTT services to those markets, so making it into a sort of a pan-regional service. What about yourselves? Because you Boris, you have as a service, is it Turkcell TV Plus?
Yes,
that's your
we have
OTT
TV
service?
Plus.
Could you tell us something about that and how that sort of operates?
I mean, we have two route to market to our subscribers. The first one via IPTV, and second one is the OTT. And what we see is that IPTV is like conventional pay TV model, and the demand and the acquisition, the churn, retention, it is all the conventional way of business. But when it comes down to OTT, it is much more different than IPTV or pay TV business. I mean, indeed, OTT also is a pay TV business, by the way. And the most important thing is when it comes to how to compete, the first one is the content, and I also believe a lot on the local one, the local content. That makes, I mean, the huge difference. The second one is your ability that you put on sales and marketing. It is very important. And the third one is definitely technology, your feature set, your product map. And but at the end of the day, if you manage all these three pillars of this business, and definitely your cost and your revenue, then I mean, you have a lot of space to grow, especially in Turkey.
Do you produce much of your own content?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
And do you export it? Because we do hear a lot about Turkish.
No, not yet, but definitely we will do that. Because in order to monetize the content, the original content, at the end of the day, you have to use it in your country, and then you have to definitely export it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Volia?
Well, I have a lot to tell about this, because I want to emphasize, if you're doing it right, it's just changing your whole monetization. It's not an add-on. It's not a niche. But if you do it, especially on a big scale like we do, it's changing how you work and changing your business model. But before getting into that, and I'm going to tell you some bedroom secrets. For example, in Ukraine, behind TV Plus, we are the white label provider. So we are providing Turkcell the whole solution. So we're very proud of that because of the content rights, because of the CDN capabilities, because of the local infrastructure. What I want to put on the table, and you can decide how much it's a bedroom secret. First of all, when you do it right, you have enormous amount of data in all these interactive solutions. You can monetize it minimum 2 different ways. You understand what they want, and you recommend, and you push, and you upsell, and cross-sell, and so on, and so on, and so on. Second, the most I've been investing in the last 1.5 years is just data analysts and setting up own advertising agency. Because the value of this targeted advertising on these platforms is completely different than how this TV was working in the past. I was not thinking about that we are going to do this. And it's completely driving not just your marketing and sales activity in the recommendation and the push, but also the content sourcing and producing. I'm going to select my word. I'm not going to use the word, for example, bullshit. We made something very simple, serious, about the life of our technicians, what they experienced in the homes of the customers. With one studio, you know, just like this 5-10 minutes. And, you know, and especially the mobile applications, more people were watching than any other movies we wanted them to watch. So the learning that now people want to watch shorts, serious, even in sport, yes, the live streaming, what we provide, and the live sport events is very important, but they are ready to pay more for everyday highlights, which is not more than 2 minutes, but available on all the devices, than just to subscribe for the Champions League or all the other stuff. And then you have to count it over, you know, where I'm investing, how I'm monetizing it. And in our case, in more than 1/5 of the customer base, it's working completely differently than, let's say, 5 years ago. And I have to tell you that it's good to see these technologies, but I still don't see how it's working properly without managed platforms, be it any kind of fixed platform or the mobile, because of the customer experience. So it's changing your whole investment strategy, changing your whole marketing, and it's a huge transformation in your first line also to understand that it's a different business.
Right. What have Turkcell and Bulsatcom looked at new revenue streams like programmatic advertising?
I think you have to understand that Bulgaria is a very different market to these guys' markets. We have like 10% of the population. You know, the revenues that you can generate from advertising, yes, they're there, but it's very, very small in this country. And, you know, based on, you know, I think what György was saying, that, you know, the example that you can create these packages which are very expensive and they deliver a lot of really sexy content, and, you know, that people will pay for that. It's just not the case here in Bulgaria. You know, the bulk of people here are very, very low income. They split between the older population, which, you know, from a good point of view, that means those customers are very sticky, but they just want to kind of watch their satellite TV and watch a few channels. Yeah, they're not really interested in change. And then you have the new young generation who are very much interested in the new technology and, you know, watching things by mobile and mobile applications. And there's an enormous difference between, I think, you know, the populations that you have in a few of the the key cities of Sofia, of Plovdiv, of Burgas. Yeah, that's completely different experience, and how you have to market and how you have to develop your business from an enormous number of people from Bulgaria's perspective that are really just in the country and are not tech savvy and are not really interested in getting this incredibly deep digital experience. They just want to watch their tellies.
Sure.
Can I react just very fast?
Yeah.
Because, thank you for this point. 6 years ago, 70% of the customers were analog TV users, not ready to pay for anything, like, I don't know, €2 free. So these customers are leaving. So in 6 years, half of our customer base changed. So I'm talking about business model change. It's a pain. You can say it's a pain when someone is leaving, but at the same time, these customers are paying you completely different amount of money. So it's also as a result and part of the transformation.
Yeah. Barış, what about Turkey?
Yeah,
because
exactly the same. I mean, first of all, the advertising, depends on your business model. Yes, you can monetize via advertising as well, or you can monetize only with the subscription. But Turkey as well, 8 years ago, it was very conventional, very satellite watchers country. But now, as OTT, for example, we reached 1 million subscribers throughout Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's growing. There is a huge potential, especially the young population. really they don't want to stay in front of the big screen. It is very conventional, and they just want to watch with their mobile phone, tablets, wherever they are, and the business is growing on the OTT side for us.
Do you think there's just been a general re-education of viewers, young and old, in that they now understand video more than they ever did before, and accessing it on various devices? And obviously people like Amazon Prime and Netflix have been part of the process. Do you think that's what's actually happened? This sort of re-education almost of viewers? They understand video now?
Yeah, we are covering 38 biggest cities of Ukraine outside of Odessa. Odessa is a separate republic. And in these cities, believe it or not, half of the population has smart TV. It was shocking for me, smart TV. And if you are not doing this, there are others who are educating them, because there are already the applications, LG and Samsung, they're putting the applications on. So there's no choice. It was very helpful in the education. We could not monetize it for so long, let's be honest, because the integrators were taking the margins, so there was no money in it. But now, when you want to put on any kind of devices the same way, and also on big screen, it's like a common thing. And I want to add something. It's not about advertising this market, but it's very different. I remember in Austria, Hungary, Romania, Czech Republic, 100 megabyte internet. It's a big thing. In Ukraine 7 years ago, 100 megabyte was a minimum requirement. 38% of our Kiev subscribers using minimum 200 megabytes. So this digitization.
Do you know how slow broadband speeds are in the UK?
Yeah, it's like the center of London, It's
embarrassing.
Embarrassing. And there are certain cities where we provide 500 megabyte because there are these home workers, and because they have such an intense, content usage in the bundle. So it's also a differentiation opportunity. Back to this whole managed network. So the digitization of this urban population, not a lot, this 10, 50 million, very high. So we have to, use this opportunity, not anymore educate them.
Looking at the practicalities of launching your own OTT services, how easy is it, or could it be, say, for your respective companies? Bearing in mind, looking at costs, for instance, content costs. Is that a limiting factor, would you say?
Yes, content is always, you can think on two ways. It can be always a barrier, and also it can be also an opportunity as well. And if you have a good business model, then, we have to go ahead. But on the OTT side, I 100% agree with György.
Yes, this guy.
György.
Yeah, György. Yeah. Is that especially the short series really works a lot, also in Turkey as well.
Right. And what about Bulgaria?
Well, in Bulgaria, again, because of the restricted population, inevitably there's going to have to be partnerships with the big kind of content providers, Nova and BTV, and the distributors have to work with them. Apart from sports, where we do have our own kind of programs like Max Sport for A1, we have Sports Plus, we have our own kind of designated programs which other people can watch. But the reality is, again, because of the sheer language and cost of production and the restricted number of people that can watch, we're going to have to do this together with the big local content providers.
Okay. Well, Max, a lot of the audience here actually are local from Bulgaria, and as you all obviously know, Nova has a new owner. I was wondering from your perspective as an insider, but also an outsider, how you see, in what way that might change the market here.
Well, I know since the change of ownership, we obviously as one of probably the largest purchaser of their products, we have a very good relationship, and we've been talking to the new owner, fairly significantly. And from our perspective, I think it's refreshing to have someone who is Bulgarian, who understands the Bulgarian issues, who wants to tackle some of the issues that we want to tackle, like piracy. That's one of the key targets of the new owner. And I think so from our perspective, we see it as positive. It's not just a company that is owned by a conglomerate in Scandinavia or whatever that is, we're just one part of it. Now, this is a company that is going to be more focused. Its investment is going to be very much Bulgarian focused, and from Bulsatcom's perspective, we very much welcome that.
Yeah, so it's a positive thing.
It's a positive move.
György, you wanted to come in.
But just what I want to add to about your point, you said that how easy to introduce. Yeah, that's what you said. Mm-hmm. And you were focusing on the content. The content, because we were, the big guys with the proper content contracts and the buying power with the big houses, you can do that. You can do that because it's also their interest. And if you go on to our smart platforms, you see that in the video on demand library, there is Disney separate, there is SPI guys, and they're separate. So you can find the cooperation models, how you're doing it. It can be, SWOT, TWOT, whatever. So you can have the content, and you learn by analyzing the usage what you have to invest into the future. So I don't see it's a kind of blocking issue. What I see as a blocking issue, and now I'm reflecting to Max when he was talking about expensive packages, that in Ukraine, you can have a guess from the audience, how much does it cost in a month, let's say in euro, minimum 100 megabyte fixed internet, 10 gig mobile internet, trillions of voice usage, and OTT or content on all your devices in a month.
€5. Any offers? More offers?
Yeah, between 12 and 15 for this whole pack. So it's a super low ARPU to find the right cost model, not just in the content, but in the technical ecosystem. And in the technical ecosystem, because we are owned by American private equities, obviously we started with, the big Californian guys. By the way, when we had a project meeting, it was always in Sofia because all the outsourcing IT guys were sitting here in Sofia, no matter which companies. I changed almost the whole ecosystem, technical ecosystem, not to pay those license costs because it was much more hurting than the content. Yeah. So you have to find that system as well, or it's killing your total business case.
Sure, but obviously sports rights are quite expensive, and football in particular is popular in all three countries. Is that an obstacle, would you say?
I think it's about getting together and kind of making sure that you're paying the right price. I mean, certainly if you took, for example, in Bulgaria, the Spanish La Liga, which Bulsatcom, had, on its own for a period of time. But because of the costs, it just doesn't pay to do that. You have to kind of combine. And again, it keeps coming back into the same, I seem to be saying the same thing. But in Bulgaria, we just don't have that many people. So we have to think of the market as a whole. We have to collaborate, with our competitors and the content providers to provide the best possible experience, because any individual company on its own just simply cannot afford to do that. So sport's incredibly important, going to be even more important going forward, but we have to work with our competitors and with the content providers locally to be able to provide the best possible experience for customers.
And what about Turkey, Barış?
I mean, every market has its own consumer price and its own cost structure. I mean, that is the content business. Content price is not the same in UK. The same content price is completely different in Turkey. It depends on the country by country. And sport is one of the key elements, especially on the pay TV platform. We are carrying, English Premier League, Bundesliga, Ukraine League. And what we see, it is one of the key elements to gain new subscribers and also to manage your churn business as well.
Sure.
Yeah, it is.
In the sport, and I don't want to reflect to UK where, Sky and BT are competing crazy for billions of pounds. In Ukraine, there are two things required. First, that you are the first who is paying on time. to the content right holder, because there were these guys for long, long years who were not paying them whatever contract they had, so they really value it, okay? And then you have some bargaining power in the total tender price. That's one. The second, that before you are going into that, you know these 7, 8 different ways of monetization, how you are going to use it. And just like in, if you produce grains or coal, it has a certain price if you just put it on a channel, but you have to process it and push it up on the value chain, and all these digital technologies really helping you, and then you can package differently. There is a payback. But the traditional way that, I'm a broadcaster of I don't know what, no, there is no payback. Mm-hmm. So these are the two things, I think, that the partnerships and being honest and paying on time, mm-hmm. and the second, that before you are signing the contract, these 7, 8 ways how you are monetizing this right.
Okay. We only have just under 4 minutes left. I was wondering if anybody has any questions from the audience. Please.
Hi, Irina Batelino from Telecoms Slovenia. I have a question for György. Do you hear me well? Yeah. Okay. You mentioned that you set up an addressable advertising platform. I wonder how much time you needed. So technological-wise and business-wise, do you do it only on your own content channels or VOD or whatever, or the one you buy as well? And do you do the ad sales yourself? Thank you.
I'm going to share with you what I can share, okay? So if I'm not answering all your questions, sorry for that, okay? And the reason is because there are certain ongoing negotiations. We have our own channels, what we are producing, and we had advertising sales agreement with one of the ad agencies, one of the media groups. They were doing it for us, also not paying on time. So it was already a motivation without the OTT to get into this. And because we have a distribution business and we have B2B business, we have the competencies. We can easily grab the competencies to do that. But this OTT usage analytics, especially on the mobile platforms, which is driving us that, someone was reminding us, that this value is much bigger than just selling the advertising. So it's not just on the channel. The inventory what you create, for example, on your EPG, when you are getting into the application on the mobile platform, and whatever is there, there's always something, offered to you, but there is enough space. And we used it always for our own services. So it's not a big setup. You just have to have the system, that how you are putting this advertising. I think it's 3 months. And the difficult part, to show everyone the data, to be credible, and not just they are coming with this old school Nielsen thing.
Oh.
Yeah? And it's happening super slow. Okay, so it's this miniature money now. Advertising market is very, very small, but coming from zero, what I see now, it can be 2-3 million euro for us in a year or so. So the time is rather to have the acceptance from the market that is reliable data, and this is the value, because you know exactly who watched what. Even what, actor, what part. So back to this whole product placement for this unproduced short series. So I don't want to get into that because I'm going crazy, because, even people educated me and now I'm getting into this. It's a very different model. So it's technically not difficult. Market acceptance, slow.
Was that brief enough for you?
Okay, we've run out of time almost, just half a minute left. Any very quick final questions from the audience? No?
Time is up. Thank you very much.
Okay,
this
thank you very much.
Very, very interesting.
That's good.